I have the great pleasure of introducing Dr Stewart Vella. He's a sports psychologist at the Early Start Research Institute. And he'll be providing insight into his work on mental health organisations and local sporting groups. He's also joined by his research colleague, Dr Andrea Fogarty from the Black Dog Institute. That's about it. So I'll hand it over to you, Stewart.
Thanks, Mel. So my name's Stewart. I'm from the University of Wollongong. This is Andrea. Andrea's from the Black Dog. We're going to talk to you today predominantly about a big project that we're currently running in the Illawarra through the University of Wollongong called Ahead of the Game Project. It's our nice little name for the project, but it's quite a big project. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about that project in particular and give you some insight into what we're doing with community sporting clubs in the Illawarra. We thought we might start by explaining a little bit about our partner, the Black Dog Institute. Andrew, do you want to give us a quick rundown on what the Black Dog Institute is all about?
Sure. So if you're not familiar with Black Dog Institute, we're a translational research institute. So what that means is we've got in the same building basic research, a number of treatment clinics as well as community education teams. And we specialise in mood disorders like depression, anxiety and bipolar.
And why might the Black Dog Institute want to get involved in a sports-based project?
Okay, so one of our kind of key mission areas is to do community education. So we do a lot of outreach in schools with GPs, clinicians, through the workplace. We're just getting started there as well. And so when Stu invited us onto this project, we're really excited because we haven't done a lot of work in this setting before, and it's a great way to target adolescents, when they really need some help.
Thanks. So I'd also like to just take this opportunity at the outset of the presentation to say a big thank you to the Movember Foundation. So I don't usually sport a moustache of this magnitude, but it's Movember. We're supporting Movember, and the reason we support Movember is because Movember have funded this project. So Movember have made a significant investment in this project. Some of you may know that the Movember Foundation have given away the better part of $1 billion worldwide into really important mental health and cancer research for specifically relating to males. So it's a hell of a lot of money. They're doing some really good work. So we'd like to acknowledge our generous support of the Movember Foundation who've funded this project. We'd also like to acknowledge our partners. So we have a lot of partners on this project. One of the things that the Movember Foundation do really well is making sure research and knowledge gets into the hands of people, giving the right information to the right people at the right time. It's really, really important. So one of the things the Movember Foundation is focused on is making sure that what we learn from this project actually gets translated, disseminated and sustained in the community. And the way that we do that is through our community partners. So we obviously have the Australian Sports Commission, which is the government body for sports in the country. We have the governing bodies of the 6 most popular sports for adolescent males. That's participation sports, so soccer, cricket, swimming, tennis, basketball and AFL. We obviously have the Black Dog Institute, who are the country's largest mental health research institute. We have the Australian Drug Foundation, who have over 7,000 community sporting clubs signed up to their Good Sports program. And we also partner with ACU, Centre for Health and Social Research, who do all of our social marketing.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of context and background about the need for a project like this. So on average, across the world, we know that men die 6 years earlier than women, and we know that men are at increased risk of suicide. So about 75% of all suicides in Australia are accounted for by men. And the World Health Organisation estimates that 510,000 men die from suicide globally each year. So that roughly equates to about 1 man dying from suicide every minute. Outside of suicide, we also know that 1 in every 2 men will suffer a mental health problem in their lifetime. And of those adult disorders, 75% of them have their onset between the ages of 12 and 25. So that's a really crucial time frame for adolescents. It means that adolescent males are at higher risk of mental health problems and suicide. It also translates to 1 in 7 adolescent males have a mental health problem at any given time. So if you think about those numbers in the context of your average sports team, that means there's 1 male on every basketball team with a problem, 2 on every cricket team, 2 on every soccer team, and about 3 on every AFL team. So they're not insignificant numbers that we're talking about. We also know in this context that men, and especially adolescents, they have somewhat negative attitudes towards help seeking. They're not especially proactive. And that can mean that there's treatment delays of up to 9 years for severe mental health problems. And that in turn leads to, adverse outcomes for these young men. So that's things like, decreased chance of finishing school, getting a job, functioning optimally in general. And outside of those personal impacts, there's quite a significant cost to society. So it's estimated that mental health problems in men cost the national economy over $10 billion each year in Australia.
So there's some pretty hard-hitting statistics. I think, if you think about 1 in 7 adolescents at any given time suffering from a mental health problem, and that figure would come down to 1 in 4 in any 12-month period. So you're talking about significant numbers of adolescents, and as we saw, if you're looking at one in every basketball team and a couple in every soccer or cricket team and maybe 3 in every AFL team, that's a lot. So to contextualise that for you within the Illawarra, we know that there are over 5,000 adolescent males, so aged 12 to 17, who participate in organised sports each year in the Illawarra. If you take 1 in 7, that means over 700 of them currently have a mental health problem. So they're the kind of numbers we're looking at and the kind of numbers we're looking to reach through organised sports. It's a really significant problem, even for the 12 to 17-year-olds. The good news is, though, that our research has shown that kids who participate in organised sports are 10 to 20% less likely to have a mental health problem. So that's within 3 years, they're less likely to have a mental health diagnosis than kids who don't participate in sport or kids who drop out of sports. So there's something about sports that seems to be protective around mental health. We also know that kids who participate in organised sports, particularly males, are less likely to have suicidal ideations and make suicide attempts. So again, there's something about sports that seems to be quite protective. It's not up on the slides, but we also know that sports participation is associated with the development of social and emotional skills. So it might be the social bonds, it might be group identity, social identity, it might be the development of those skills, such as social and emotional skills, that provide some protection against mental health problems. It could be physical activity. There are a whole range of things that it could be. I'm not sure that we know exactly what it is just quite yet, but there are a whole range of things that can protect kids from mental health problems when they participate in organised sports. That's great news for Australia because we are a sporting nation. Did you know that the number one indicator of national pride in Australia is our sporting achievements? That's over and above any economic achievements, arts, science, technology. Okay, the way that Australians define doing well is by winning sports games. That is just an indication of how much national pride we have in terms of sports. We also have a very large number of adolescent males in particular, but adolescent males and females who participate in organised sports. So we're up between 2/3 and 3/4 of children and adolescents. So you're looking at between kind of 70-75% of all children who participate in organised sports in any given year. That puts us second, I'm sorry to say only second, behind the Kiwis. Not good timing given the cricket, but that puts us second, but it places us second in the world above countries, similar countries like England, Canada, and the US. So we're second, but that's an indication of the role of sport in our country. As I said, 75% of adolescent males participate in sport every year. So that means that we have access through organised sports to a very large percentage of that population that is, relatively speaking, at increased risk of mental health problems and of suicide. We also know that the average adolescent male spends 8 hours or more than 8 hours in organised sports every week. So that's a lot of time. So not only do we have a national importance placed on sport, not only do we have high participation numbers, but we have a lot of time in which to access those participants. And just as a by the by, when we ask adolescents to rate their experience in sport and in class or hanging out with friends, what we find is that sport is actually the best opportunity that we have to teach adolescents skills. Okay? That would include for us mental health literacy, mental health first aid, but skills in general, because sport is a very unique combination of motivation. So we find that adolescents report a lot of high levels of motivation, but also high levels of concentration. You probably wouldn't be surprised to know that school is associated with very low levels of motivation and only very small amounts of concentration. So sport seems to be something quite unique about sport, which lends itself to the opportunity to teach important lessons. I think that's just what I've said. That's not a revelation. Like, it wouldn't come as a surprise to many of you to know those kind of things. And certainly we're not the first people to come up with this idea of trying to use sport to increase mental health, to promote well-being. I've got a video here which comes from the Australian Sports Commission. It's from their Play Sport Australia initiative. So the focus of Play Sport Australia, it's a government initiative, a national initiative, to increase the number of kids who participate in organised sport. And for the reasons that we've already outlined, we think that's a really good initiative for mental health, because we know that kids who participate in sport are less likely to have mental health problems, have greater well-being. So while it is quite a passive intervention, we consider it a good intervention for mental health. So we'll just play this video. Something magic about sports that lends itself to these kind of things. It touches there on the magic of sports to promote self-belief. But I think there's a few things to say in particular about this campaign. The first one is that it's not necessarily automatic. I don't think we can just enrol our kids in sports and assume that they're going to have benefits for mental health, benefits for well-being, learn social and emotional skills. I think these need to be quite deliberate in their teaching. The second one is that I'm not sure that an initiative to increase participation should focus only on getting new people into sport. I think we have a pretty big dropout problem. The literature shows us that between 20 and 25% of kids drop out of sport every year. So I think there needs to be a bit of a focus on dropping out of sport, and that's something that we've tried to address in our Ahead of the Game program. And the last one is that the very nature of the intervention, being a population-wide, kind of government intervention, means that the skills that kids are telling us that they need, when we go and talk to kids in the Illawarra, the skills that they need to help their mental health, so being able to recognise the symptoms of mental health problems, being able to start a conversation, they can't be taught through a program like this. But this is a really good program for, in terms of a population-level program that can help kids' mental health by trying to get them involved in sports. I think a much better initiative, a less passive initiative, is the NRL State of Mind campaign. So some of you might have seen the ads associated with the NRL State of Mind campaign. The NRL State of Mind campaign has its aims to destigmatise mental health problems, to start positive conversations around mental health, okay, and to increase mental health literacy. So I've got a video here, a couple of videos, two videos that come out of that NRL State of Mind campaign. Well, you can just feel the awkwardness in that conversation. I think we have one more on the next slide. So I think these are really great initiatives. Obviously, there's some things that we all know about men that this is trying to break down. The fact that men don't like to talk about their health, they don't like to talk about significant life events and their mental health in particular, and they don't want to seek help either. So men are really reluctant to go and see someone if they don't feel physically or mentally well. So this is a really great campaign trying to break down some of those things. But when we go and engage with adolescent sport participants in the Illawarra, when we go and talk to adolescents who are playing sport, they're asking for a little more than this. So this is really great to tell men and to tell adolescents, to tell young men that they need to start a conversation is a fantastic thing. But there are a few things that this doesn't do. One, and the thing that they're asking us for the most, is how do I know when I need to start that conversation? How do I know when someone has depression? What are the signs and symptoms of a mental health problem? How do I know when I need to start that conversation? The second one is, what do I say? I have no idea what to say. How do I start that conversation? What do I say to someone? What do I say to another man? What do I say to another male when I need to ask him about mental health? And then the third one is, then what the heck do I do with that information? So they're going to tell me, is it then my responsibility to fix the problem? Or what do I do with that? Where can I point them? They don't know what to do with that. So there are three really important things that adolescents want to know. They're telling us that they want to know, and they certainly, the literature tells us that those are three important things that they need to know.
Okay, so some of those questions that Stewart just spoke about were really reflected in our research, and I just want to shout out Vanessa at the moment over here and Sarah, who we've spent most of this year talking to adolescent males aged 12 to 17, their coaches and their parents across AFL, basketball, cricket, football, swimming and tennis. Got them all. But anyway, these two did a really magnificent job in terms of, finding us people to speak to there. So just here on screen, we've got a quote from an adolescent AFL player, and he says, "You can probably tell if someone's having a bad day, but if it's ongoing depression, you might not notice it." So that really speaks to, they're not necessarily clear on how to recognise the warning signs. And then this second quote is from an adolescent soccer player, and he's saying, "I feel like girls probably talk about it more, but if it was a guy, if a guy was legitimately depressed, he probably wouldn't tell all of the boys." And that really speaks to what Stu was saying about, well, how do you start that conversation? How do boys in particular start that conversation? And that's echoed further here with an adolescent swimmer who says, "I think it's hard to just get guys to sit down and talk about their feelings." Again, it's about how do you start that conversation. So what we're really hearing is, they need some help with self-efficacy. They need to know how to start a conversation, what to say, and how you can help somebody. So this last quote we've got here, this was in response to a question of, if you noticed somebody had a mental health problem, what do you think you would do? And this basketball player says, "Well, I'd probably feel bad for them. I'd want to help them out, but at this point in time, probably not too sure how to help them out. You feel helpless, like you can't do anything for them." So that really illustrates that issue of, well, what do you do once you know someone has a problem, and what do you do with that information? So throughout our research, we really engaged with adolescents in Illawarra. We really tried to listen to what they had to say, told us what they needed, the skills they wanted to develop, and the type of information they were looking for to kind of help them feel confident that they knew what to do or how to respond if the situation arose for them. So that's why we have developed the Ahead of the Game program, which I'm going to let Stu speak to.
Sure. So based on what we know and based on everything that the adolescents had told us over the last 12 months, as well as their coaches and their parents and the club officials, we've developed a program which we've called Ahead of the Game. So it's a fairly comprehensive program. What we've tried to do is come at mental health from multiple angles, from multiple levels, because we know that changing someone's mental health is not as easy as just giving them a 2-hour workshop on mental health literacy, kind of telling them the signs, telling them the symptoms, telling them where to go and get help, and expect them to then go and act on that. So what we've tried to do is try to get at mental health for those adolescents from as many different angles as we can. So we have, to start with, a messaging campaign, which we'll show you what we've developed in a minute, but it's really then about that environment level, so putting something out there in their environment, in the sporting club, on the back of toilet doors, above the urinal, that's, impacting on their environment. We also have developed a resilience and wellbeing program. We haven't touched upon it much yet, but just because you don't have depression, or you don't suffer from an anxiety disorder, does not necessarily mean that you have high levels of well-being. They're different. Okay? We can think of them as being different on different scales. So what we have is the objective to prevent or decrease the risk of mental health problems, but also to increase well-being. And by increasing well-being, you give adolescents some resilience to mental health problems. If something bad occurs, if they have a negative life event, if they have high levels of well-being, high levels of resilience, then they're less likely to suffer mental health problems. So we have a program designed to increase well-being and resilience. We have a program to complement that. So as we said, it's not just enough to give them, kind of start a conversation, talk to someone. You need to give them the skills to do that. So we have got a mental health literacy for adolescents and for parents. So we're going to teach them those skills. We have destigmatization as part of the project. So in conjunction with giving them the skills, what we also really need to do is get rid of that stigma associated with mental health problems. And that makes people more likely to talk about it, to go and seek help if we can remove that stigma. As I said, preventing dropout is a key component of our program. So we're working with coaches to facilitate good types of motivation for athletes to prevent dropout. And we also have a parenting component in addition to the mental health literacy about positive parenting, how to support your son in sports.
Okay, so from the research we did, we know that there's quite good levels of mental health knowledge among young men in the Illawarra, but we also found there's still a lot of stigma associated with mental health problems. We also know the best way to address stigma is to approach it in the environment in which it's occurring. So that's why we've embedded this campaign in the clubs. We also found with the adolescents that they responded really well to campaigns we showed them that had a touch of humour. So they want something funny to sort of engage them. But we also noticed through their conversations that there's still some elements of adhering to masculine stereotypes. So that's why we've designed this promotional campaign to promote help seeking and destigmatise mental health problems and try and address those more masculine stereotypes. So this is an example of one of the first posters we've come up with. So it says, "You won't lose your man card for having feelings, unless they're for your mate's mum." And I don't know if you can read that down the bottom, but it says, "Everyone feels anxious or stressed every now and then, but if you've felt this way for more than 2 weeks, then it's time to get help. Talking about it with someone you trust is a great start." So I guess we're really trying to hook them with the humour at the start and then get some, literacy in at the bottom there. So in the same vein, you won't lose your man card for helping your mates, unless it's help choosing a hair colour. And down the bottom it says, "You talk to your mates all the time, but do you ever ask how they're really doing? Don't wait until something is wrong to find out. A simple 'how are you' could be all the help that they need." And then our third poster here is, "You won't lose your man card for getting help, unless it's help opening a jar. It's okay to ask for help. If you haven't been yourself for more than 2 weeks, it might be time to get some. Talking it out with a person that you trust is a great start." So that's just a taste of the messaging campaign so far.
So as I said, this is a really great thing, and I think the objectives are similar to the NRL State of Mind campaign. We want to destigmatise help seeking. We want to promote mental health literacy with the 2 weeks. If you've been feeling low for 2 weeks, that comes directly from the diagnosis of depression with feeling low for 2 weeks or more. So that's about mental health literacy, but we need more than that. As we've said, we need to give them the skills. We need to give them the skills to start a conversation. They need to know what to say. They need to know when they need to have that conversation around, when is it that they need to intervene with their mates. So what are the signs and symptoms of mental health problems? And then they also need to know what to do. So they need to know where to point their mates. What are the avenues available for help? So what we've done is designed, in conjunction with the adolescents, a Help Out Your Mate program. The Help Out Your Mate program came from a really strong message that we were getting from the adolescents to say, a mental health night, we're not going to be part of that. We don't have mental health problems, but I want to know how to help out my mate. So that was a really strong message that we were getting through the focus groups, and so that's how we framed our Help Out a Mate program. Of course, it's going to have some personal benefit, but it's framed as Help Out Your Mate. Help them to recognise the signs and symptoms of mental health problems, give them the skills to start a conversation, and also give them the knowledge about where to point a friend or a mate if they need to do so. So what we're going to do is just give you a really short snippet of this program. So this is a face-to-face workshop that will be delivered in the sporting clubs. Okay, so we anticipate that clubs or teams, in addition to their training or instead of their training, will come to the clubhouse and participate in this face-to-face Help Out a Mate program. It's about 45 minutes in duration all up because they're telling us it needs to be short. We recognise the need to keep it short because people have time constraints. So this is the best that we could do, 45 minutes of these kind of skills. So this is just a taster of the kind of things that they get. So the The program proceeds by giving them the signs and symptoms of the major mental illnesses, namely depression and anxiety, what they might look like, and particularly what they might look like in a sporting context. So if your mate stops turning up to training, got a lack of energy at training, feeling low, those kind of things. So we teach them that, and then we say, if you recognise these things, you've got 3 things to remember. The first is ask how they are. The second, listen without judgment. And the third, be a good teammate. So when you want to ask how they are, again, this is an abridged version for the purpose of this presentation, but when you want to ask how they are, make sure you speak to them a time that suits them, a time that they're comfortable. If it's around other people or at training or a game, ask if they'd like to catch up later. So we recommend you don't make these conversations in a group. They're best done one-on-one. You can send a text, okay? I know adolescents are very active on social media. I think I'm a little out of touch, but send a text. There may be other things that they can do, such as, I don't know if adolescents are all that into Facebook. I think it's just the 30 plus, Snapchat.
Yeah.
And plan what you'll say. So then at this stage, we ask them to think about what they'd say. We ask them to think about going through that conversation, and then we get them to have a little role play. So it's a little role play of having that conversation with one of their friends. We don't tell them what to say, we don't give them a script, we just ask them to think about it and then to go into that conversation. Then listen without judgment. So the first thing to remember is your mate actually might not be ready to talk when you ask, and that's okay. Okay? Be there for them if and when they do want to talk, and let them know that you will be there for them. Okay? But if they don't want to talk, that's fine. If you don't get a positive response, that's okay. It's not a personal attack on you. Just smile, nod, say, okay, that's really great, but I'm there for you if you want to talk. If they do feel like talking, listen to what they have to say without labelling or judging. Just listen, nod, smile. It's what we call minimal reinforcers. So nodding, smiling, repeating back to them what they're saying, so make sure you understand and they feel like they're being heard. All those little things you can do to listen without judgment. And then we call it be a good mate or be a good teammate. Don't share your friend's story with other mates. Connect your mate with a supportive adult or with a service, which we've given them in the back of their notebook a list of all the services, and we will go through those with them during the program. And if you're not capable, if you don't feel like if you don't have the confidence to do that, don't feel like you have the skills to do that, you can tell a supportive and trusted adult of your concern. And be a good mate all the time. So it means doing these things all of the time. So that's a little snippet of that program. We didn't have time to take you through more of it, but that's a little snippet of the Help Out Your Mate program, which is designed to complement and supplement the messaging campaign with the You Won't Lose Your Man card.
Okay, so the third component of Ahead of the Game is what we're loosely calling our positive parenting program. So just to reinforce what's been said so far, with the research, the parents were saying things like, they have great information and things like that. Just, okay, what do I do? What's my next step? Action steps. This is this thing, so I can recognise it, then what do I do? So, it really reinforces the same as what was happening with the adolescents. They need some help knowing what to do next once they've distinguished between what's regular moody behaviour and what might be a mental health problem. Again, we've got another Illawarra parent here saying, whoop, here we have it. So I'm not quite sure whether it's a sporting environment, whether it's school or wherever it is, whether it's in your own home environment, but it's about normalising the ability to discuss it. So frankly, we couldn't have said it better ourselves. We really do want to normalise these conversations, and the idea of the parenting program is to help parents, I guess, have better communication with their adolescents about these issues. So they also told us in the research that they wanted something really short, something accessible. They told us that they didn't have a lot of time to come and attend face-to-face workshops with us. They wanted it to be easy to understand. So basically we're talking about a program where it's minimum time investment, but basically getting maximal information. So what we've done is designed an e-program for parents addressing these 4 things: mental health literacy, how to encourage help seeking, how to have a conversation, and where to point your adolescent who needs help. And with this, we are basing it on short videos and infographics. So again, they're the quickest way to communicate the information that parents tell us they need in the shortest amount of time. It's going to be available on our website and through our app.
one of the things that we really found with parents, and we have a PhD student working on this particular component of the program who's done such a fantastic job, because the parents we found are telling us, we want to know these things. We want to know how we can tell the difference between a normal adolescent mood and depression. We want to know how to start a conversation. We want to know what to say. We want to know where to send them. They want to know all of these things, but they're not prepared to put in any time to go and get that information. So this is a real challenge for us to kind of give as much information in the smallest, shortest, time period possible. And I think parents they want this just to be like, while they're sleeping, put into their mind this knowledge. They don't want to actually go out and do anything. So that's why we've gone with an e-program. It's like videos, interactive infographics that they can just get sent to their inbox. They can, if they've got 30 seconds, they can look at it. If not, then they don't. But these are the kind of problems that we were having. But our PhD student has done a really good job. And I think we've got a video of something that he's been trialling with parents to this point. Okay, so that's a little snapshot of the parenting program. The next one we have is, as I said, a wellbeing program. The Wellbeing program is a sports psychology course for athletes, but it very much has a dual purpose. So the content of the sports psychology program includes things which we know are going to be good for performance, but we also know that are proven to increase wellbeing. So in that sense, it's very much a dual purpose. For want of a better term, I call it stealth mental health, but that's maybe not the best term, but that's what it is. The content that we have is peak performance states, mindfulness, confidence, goal setting, and cultivating challenge. So this is an online, or they can also do it on an app. It's one topic per week. It takes about 15 minutes to go through one topic. They get a few exercises that they can do, a couple to take home and practice. We're just going to give you a little sneak peek then into the mindfulness component. This next video is one that just explains exactly what mindfulness is, and I hope that it's fairly self-evident as to how it might be relevant for both performance and well-being. So that's the Wellbeing Pro. And the last one we have is our coach training program. We call it Athlete Motivation, a how-to guide for coaches. Based on self-determination theory, which is a theory of motivation which has decades of research behind its effectiveness. Based on what the coaches have told us, we have online modules. So you can have an option to go to two face-to-face workshops complemented by 11 online modules, which take about 15 minutes each. Coaches can choose if they want to do one or the other, or a combination of both. The point of the coach training program is to help the coaches facilitate good types of motivation for athletes. So we think a good type of motivation is intrinsic motivation, when they want to be there to participate in the sport itself, rather than an extrinsic motivation, which might be when they feel compelled to be there, kind of parent or coach pressure. That's external motivation or extrinsic motivation. But we want to facilitate intrinsic motivation using self-determination theory. Self-determination theory really briefly is about fulfilling the basic psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So the need to feel like you control your environment, the need to feel good at what you do, and the need to have positive relationships within that environment. And if you can get all those, you have intrinsic motivation. So we're going to help coaches to facilitate autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And we just have one last little video to finish the presentation. Okay.
So now we're getting to the pitch part of the evening, how you can help. So at the moment, we're currently recruiting in Illawarra Shoalhaven area. So if you're involved in any sports clubs in AFL, basketball, cricket, football, swimming and tennis, if you know anyone who's involved in them, if you have a son between the ages of 12 to 17 who's involved in a sporting club, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get your clubs signed up. So the way you can do that is to visit our website for more information. So that's aheadofthegame.org.au. And so there's a bit of information on the website about the project. You can contact the project staff if you have any questions or you need to know more. You can request a presentation about the project at your sporting club. But actually we just want you to sign up straight away. So there's also a place where you can do that as well.
And then very lastly, another pitch for the Movember Foundation, because as I said, they've so generously funded all of this research. They've invested a lot in this research. And so you can donate to the Movember Foundation via our page at www.mobro.co/UOW. We also have a couple of donation boxes here and on the bar there if you feel like donating. So it's a very worthwhile cause. As I said, the Movember Foundation has given the best part of $1 billion to research worldwide to men's health, and it's a really worthwhile cause. So thank you. I think we have a guest speaker, Dan Hunt from the St George Illawarra Dragons. He's going to come and join us just for a little bit. Dan, how are you? Nice to meet you. If you maybe jump on that microphone, Dan. You're from the Dragons. What's your role at the Dragons?
Yeah, okay. So I'm recently retired, if you don't know. So I played 10 years first grade, and I had a career-ending knee injury this year. So whilst I was playing, I studied, so I'm a qualified social worker now. And part of my role with the Dragons is in welfare and education and community development. And with that State of Mind campaign, there's been 10 of us, 10 ambassadors that have been picked, or we've nominated ourselves to be part of that State of Mind campaign. So that's one of my roles, where you spoke about it. It is about educating, destigmatising and promoting those help-seeking strategies around mental health and anything that sort of permeates with mental health. So I guess the reason why I got involved in that is during my career, obviously there was a lot of ups and downs with injury. I struggled a little bit with addiction to painkillers. And in 2009, I got diagnosed with type 2 bipolar. So I come out publicly with that in 2010. And I did that purely for the reason because I knew when I was struggling how dark it could be. I felt like I was alone, and I was really scared to ask for help. And I guess you can use that metaphor of the masculinity of rugby league, because I wasn't scared to run at the biggest guy on the field, but I was scared to talk about how I was feeling or what was going on in my life. So if I could use that rugby league as the forum to give young kids confidence, or even give anyone confidence to put their hand up and ask for help, it takes a stronger person to do that. So I felt like that was my duty. In saying that, it's still managing my mental illness. I use the analogy, you probably have heard it. So you've got a cup, and every time something happens in your life, you pour a little bit into the cup. So you might have your financial situation, you might have family, friends, work, and eventually if you don't deal with these problems or manage it, your cup's going to overflow. Okay, and then that's when you can get into those depressive states, states of anxiety, some real dark lows, and things like that. So there's plenty of tools there that they've used to be able to manage that cup and manage your moods and your mental illness. So there's so many negative connotations around mental illness, but I truly believe education is the key to positive choices. The more you know, the more you can understand, the better choices you can make around your mental health and your well-being. So that's sort of what I'm doing in a nutshell. I spend a lot of time going out to schools and sharing my story in a bit more depth than what I have here. And I really get the questions that the kids ask me back, and the fact that kids come back and stay after and ask me to link them with the help and get help. So I truly believe that we're talking about the right things at the right time. So if there's any questions you guys want to ask, I'm more than happy to answer them with anything to do with my mental health journey, what I'm doing now, what the Dragons are doing, the NRL, anything like that. I'm more than happy to answer.
I've got one question, Dan. We saw a couple of the ads for the NRL State of Mind campaign. I think they're fantastic ads. Could you give us a little bit more information on what's involved in the State of Mind campaign beyond just those ads that people might see on the TV? Yeah, so as I said, it's about last year, and with those ads, it was really just about raising awareness and using that 6-week block around State of Origin to raise that awareness around mental health. But with it being so prevalent in society, with 45% of people who suffer a form of mental illness in their lifetime, and suicide being the leading cause of death, 15 to 44 years, the NRL have now
gone with the education, the destigmatising and the help-seeking strategy. So now we're partnered with Headspace, Black Dog, Kids Helpline and Lifeline, where we have the resources to be able to link and to get that pathway for people to get that help when we do go to schools, junior rugby league teams, other walks of the community. And the Dragons have also aligned, one of our pillars is Wellbeing. So part of that is we are doing that State of Mind campaign as we speak, going to schools and doing those things through education, destigmatising and promoting help-seeking strategies.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I could really commend the NRL on that campaign. Being someone who studies this area a lot, I would really concede that it represents current best practice. No one's doing anything even close to what the NRL is doing in this space. So I think it's a really fantastic initiative, and well done, Dan, on being an ambassador. It's a fantastic cause.
Thank you all for coming to the last Uni in the Brewery for 2015. I'd like to thank Stewart, Andrea and Dan as well for coming along, sharing your knowledge and spending your time here with us. Thank you.